The message came to Earth on a cold winter morning. It traveled across thousands of light years in less than a second. When the leaders of Earth read it, they knew that everything was about to change. The Galactic Coalition needed soldiers. The Ven Empire had attacked a small moon called Callus 7. They had taken 2,000 hostages from different planets. The Coalition was gathering troops from all 70 member worlds. Every species would send their best warriors. Every planet would contribute to the rescue mission. Earth had only been part of the Coalition for 3 years. Most alien species still thought of humans as primitive creatures. They saw Earth as a young planet with young technology. When the Coalition allowed Earth to send one soldier, it was not a sign of respect. It was a small act of kindness, like letting a child sit at the adult table. The military leaders of Earth gathered in a large room beneath the mountains of Korea. They had to choose one person. One human to represent all of humanity. One soldier to stand beside alien warriors who had been fighting wars for thousands of years. General Park Sung-ho looked at the files on his desk. He had spent 3 days reading about every special soldier on Earth. He had looked at their training records. He had studied their missions. He had watched videos of their skills. But one name kept coming back to him again and again. Staff Sergeant Kang Tae-Woo. Tae-Woo was not the strongest soldier. He was not the fastest. He did not have the most medals or the longest list of successful missions. But he had something that no other human had. He had the highest marksmanship score in the history of Earth's military. General Park called for Tae-Woo to come to the mountain base. When the sergeant arrived, Park studied him carefully. Tae-Woo was 34 years old. He was not tall. He was not short. His body was lean and strong, built from years of patient training. His face was calm, like the surface of a still lake. His eyes were steady and quiet. "Do you know why you are here?" General Park asked. "Yes, sir," Tae-Woo said. His voice was soft but clear. "You want me to go to space?" Park nodded slowly. "The aliens think we are weak. They think our weapons are toys. They will laugh at you, Sergeant. They will mock everything about you. Are you ready for that?" Tae-Woo thought about the question for a long moment. He had grown up in a small village in Gangwon Province. His father had taught him to shoot when he was 7 years old. His grandfather had been a hunter in the mountains. For 3 generations, the men in his family had learned the same lesson. One bullet, one target. No wasted movement. No wasted breath. "I have been laughed at before," Tae-Woo said finally. "It did not stop my bullet then. It will not stop my bullet now." General Park smiled for the first time in many days. He handed Tae-Woo a folder with information about the mission. Then he said something that Tae-Woo would remember for the rest of his life. "The aliens have weapons that can destroy mountains. They have ships that can burn entire cities. But they have never met a human marksman. Show them what we can do." 2 days later, Tae-Woo boarded a coalition transport ship. He carried a simple bag with his personal items. He wore the standard uniform of the Korean military. And in a long case on his back, he carried his rifle. The rifle was old by galactic standards. It was a kinetic weapon, which meant it used physical bullets instead of energy beams. Most alien species had stopped using such weapons hundreds of years ago. They considered them slow, weak, and primitive. But Tae-Woo knew his rifle better than he knew his own hands. He had fired 10,000 rounds through its barrel. He had cleaned it, fixed it, and cared for it like a living thing. It was not just a weapon. It was part of him. The journey to Coalition Station Prime took 6 hours. When Tae-Woo stepped off the transport, he found himself in a world unlike anything he had ever seen. The station was enormous. It floated in space like a metal city. Thousands of aliens walked through its halls. They had different colors, different shapes, different numbers of arms and eyes and legs. Some flew, some crawled, some moved in ways that Taewoo could not understand, but they all had one thing in common. When they saw Taewoo and his rifle, they laughed. A tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms pointed at the rifle case. "What is that?" he asked in a mocking voice. "A musical instrument?" A group of small aliens with large eyes gathered around Taewoo. They made clicking sounds that the translator in his ear turned into laughter. "The human brought a stick," one of them said. "Does he plan to hit the enemy with it?" Taewoo said nothing. He walked past them with his head held high. In the main hall of the station, he met Commander Brel of the Tyranny Legion. Brel was a large creature covered in hard plates like armor. He had 6 eyes arranged in a circle around his head. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "So you are the human," Brel said. He reached out with one of his 4 hands and took Taewoo's rifle case. He opened it and looked inside. His 6 eyes blinked one by one. "This is what humans bring to war?" Brel let out a chittering laugh that echoed through the hall. "A metal tube that throws pebbles?" Other aliens gathered around to look. They all laughed. Some of them made jokes that Taewoo did not understand. Others simply shook their heads in disbelief. Taewoo waited until Brel was finished. Then he took back his rifle case with slow, careful movements. He opened it himself and lifted the rifle out. He checked the scope. He adjusted a small dial on the side. He tested the weight and balance. He did all of this with the calm patience of a man who had done the same thing 10,000 times before. When he was satisfied, he looked at Commander Brel with his steady, quiet eyes. "This tube," Taewoo said softly, "has never missed." Brel's 6 eyes narrowed. The other aliens stopped laughing. For a brief moment, something passed through the room. It was not fear. It was not respect. It was something smaller, something uncertain. It was the first tiny crack in their confidence. Then Brel laughed again, and the moment passed. But Taewoo had seen it. He had seen that small moment of doubt. And he knew that when the time came, he would turn that small crack into a canyon. He put his rifle back in its case and walked toward his assigned room. Behind him, the aliens continued to laugh and joke. But Taewoo did not hear them. In his mind, he was already on the battlefield. He was already looking through his scope. He was already breathing slowly, waiting for the perfect moment. One shot. That was all he needed. One shot to change everything. The next morning, all the soldiers gathered in a large room for the mission briefing. Taewoo stood in the back corner, away from the crowd. He watched as aliens from dozens of different worlds took their places. Each one carried weapons that looked like something from a dream. The Tyranny soldiers had PLS Menans that glowed with orange light. The Kreth warriors carried massive energy blades that hummed with power. The Xylean sharpshooters held long photon rifles that could hit targets from 3 kilometers away. Every weapon was beautiful, advanced, and deadly. And then there was Taewoo, standing alone with his old rifle. A weapon made of metal and wood. A weapon that used gunpowder and lead. Among all these soldiers of the future, he looked like a ghost from the past. General Voss entered the room, and everyone fell silent. Voss was a Kreth warrior, one of the largest species in the coalition. He stood almost 3 meters tall. His skin was covered with natural armor that could stop most weapons. His eyes burned with the confidence of a creature who had never lost a battle. Voss activated a large screen that showed the moon of Callus 7. The image rotated slowly, revealing the enemy base where the hostages were being held. "The Ven Empire has taken this outpost," Voss said in a deep, rumbling voice. "They hold 2,000 prisoners from 12 different worlds. Our mission is simple. We go in, we kill the enemy, We bring our people home." He pressed a button, and the screen changed to show the assault plan. 50 elite soldiers would land near the base. Air support would keep the enemy busy. Ground troops would breach the walls and clear each room. It was a direct attack with overwhelming force. "Any questions?" Voss asked. A Scythian soldier raised her hand. She was tall and thin, with silver skin that reflected the light. Her name was Lieutenant Mora, and she was known as one of the best sharpshooters in the Coalition. "What is the human's role?" Mora asked. She did not look at Tae-woo. She spoke as if he was not even in the room. General Voss finally glanced at the corner where Tae-woo stood. His eyes showed no interest, no curiosity, nothing at all. "The human will stay in the rear," Voss said. "He will observe. Perhaps he will learn how real soldiers fight." Laughter filled the room. Some soldiers did not even try to hide their amusement. A Tarani warrior pretended to fire an invisible rifle, making explosion sounds with his mouth. A group of small aliens imitated primitive cave people, grunting and hitting their chests. Tae-woo watched all of this with a calm face. He did not react. He did not defend himself. He simply stood there like a stone in a river, letting the water flow around him. When the briefing ended, Tae-woo returned to his small room on the station. He sat on his bed and began to clean his rifle. He took it apart piece by piece. He wiped each component with a soft cloth. He checked for any damage, any wear, any imperfection. He did this every day, whether he needed to or not. It was a ritual, a meditation, a way of preparing his mind for what was to come. A knock came at his door. He opened it and found a young woman standing in the hallway. She had black hair and kind eyes. She wore the uniform of a Coalition translator. "Staff Sergeant Kang?" she said in Korean. "I am Private First Class Yoon Ha. I work as a translator on this station." Tae-woo stepped aside and let her enter. It felt strange to hear his own language in this place, so far from home. Hana looked around the small room. She saw the rifle parts spread out on the bed. She saw the simple bag in the corner. She saw a photograph taped to the wall. It showed a small village surrounded by mountains, with a river running through it. "That is your home?" she asked. Tae-woo nodded. "Gangwon Province. I grew up there." Hannah sat down in the only chair. Her face was troubled. "I heard what happened in the briefing room. The way they laughed at you." She shook her head slowly. "They do not respect us. They never will." Tae-woo continued to clean his rifle. His hands moved with smooth, automatic motions. "Why are you here, Private Yoon?" Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I wanted to meet you. I wanted to see the man that Earth chose to represent us. I wanted to know if there was any hope." Tae-woo looked up from his work. His eyes met hers. "Hope for what?" "Hope that someday they will see us as equals," Hannah said. "Hope that we are not just a joke to them. Hope that Earth means something in this galaxy." Tae-woo put down the rifle part he was holding. He walked to the small window and looked out at the stars. Billions of lights stretched across the darkness. Each one was a sun. Each sun had planets. Each planet might have life, civilizations, history. The universe was so big, and Earth was so small. "When I was young," Tae-woo said slowly, "my grandfather taught me to hunt. We would wake up before sunrise and walk into the mountains. We would find a good position and wait. Sometimes we waited for hours. Sometimes we waited all day. My grandfather never complained. He never got bored. He just waited." Hannah listened carefully. She did not interrupt. "One day, I asked him why we had to wait so long. He told me something I have never forgotten. He told me something I have never forgotten." Tae-woo turned to look at Hannah. He said that the target does not come to you. You do not control when the moment arrives. All you can control is yourself. Your breathing, your focus, your patience. And when the moment finally comes, you must be ready to take it. Not a second too early. Not a second too late. Hannah nodded slowly. But what if the moment never comes? Tae-woo smiled slightly. It was the first time he had smiled since arriving at the station. The moment always comes. Maybe not when you expect it. Maybe not how you imagine it. But it comes. And that is when everything changes. He picked up his rifle and began putting it back together. Each piece clicked into place with perfect precision. Respect is not given, Tae-woo said. It is taken. One shot at a time. Tomorrow, we go to Cala 7. Tomorrow, the moment will come. And when it does, I will be ready. Hannah stood up. She looked at Tae-woo with new eyes. When she had entered the room, she had felt hopeless. Now, she felt something different. It was small, like a tiny flame in the darkness. But it was there. I hope you are right, Sergeant, she said. Tae-woo finished assembling his rifle. He lifted it and looked through the scope at the far wall. His eye was steady. His hands were still. His breathing was slow and calm. I am not right or wrong, he said quietly. I am simply ready. Hannah left the room and walked back through the station. All around her, alien soldiers prepared for battle. They checked their energy weapons. They tested their plasma shields. They laughed and joked about the easy victory that awaited them. None of them paid attention to the quiet human in the small room. None of them knew that he was the most dangerous soldier on the station. None of them understood that sometimes the oldest weapons are the deadliest. But they would learn. Soon, they would all learn. The transport ships descended through the thin atmosphere of Cala 7. Inside, 50 elite soldiers sat in silence. Their weapons were charged. Their armor was sealed. Their minds were focused on the battle ahead. Tae-woo sat in the back of the last ship, separated from the others. He had been given the oldest equipment and the worst position. The aliens did not even pretend to include him in their plans. To them, he was just a passenger, a witness. Nothing more. Through the small window, Tae-woo watched the moon grow larger. Cala 7 was a gray world covered with rocks and dust. There were no trees, no water, no life. It was a dead place, perfect for hiding and fighting and dying. The ships landed 1 kilometer from the enemy base. General Voss gave the signal, and the soldiers poured out onto the surface. They moved quickly and efficiently, spreading out information. The air support ships circled above, ready to strike. Tae-woo was directed to a small hill 800 meters behind the front line. It was a safe position, far from any danger. From there, he could see the entire battlefield, but he could not participate in the fight. He lay down on the rocky ground and set up his rifle. He looked through the scope and watched the assault begin. At first, everything went according to plan. The coalition soldiers approached the base from 3 directions. They used their energy weapons to cut through the outer walls. They moved inside with careful precision, clearing each room one by one. Then the trap was sprung. The Ven had known they were coming. Coalition intelligence had failed completely. Instead of 200 enemy soldiers, there were 600. Instead of basic defenses, there were heavy weapons and shield generators. The Ven had been waiting, and now they attacked with terrible fury. Tae-woo watched through his scope as the battle changed in seconds. Coalition soldiers who had been advancing were now retreating. Energy beams filled the air like deadly rain. Kreth warriors fell, their armored bodies torn apart by plasma fire. Durrani soldiers tried to form defensive lines, but they were overwhelmed by the enemy numbers. Commander Brull screamed orders into his communicator, but no one could hear him over the chaos. Lieutenant Mora fired her photon rifle again and again, but the enemy shields absorbed every shot. General Voss fought like a demon, his massive body crushing any Ven soldier who came close. But even he could not turn the tide. The rescue mission had become a disaster. The coalition was losing. Taewoo remained calm. His heart beat slowly. His hands were steady on his rifle. He continued to scan the battlefield, looking for any opportunity to help Dot. Then he saw something that made him stop. On a high balcony overlooking the battle, a figure emerged. He was tall and thin, dressed in elaborate armor that shimmered with golden light. His face was long and cruel, with sharp features and cold eyes. Around him stood 6 guards wearing heavy shields that glowed with energy. Taewoo recognized him immediately from the mission briefings. This was Emperor Dren, the supreme commander of all Ven forces. He was one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He had destroyed entire worlds. He had killed millions. And now he had come to watch his enemies die. Dren raised his arms and shouted something to his troops below. His voice boomed across the battlefield, and the Ven soldiers fought even harder. They were inspired by their leader's presence. They believed they could not lose. Taewoo studied the balcony through his scope. The 6 guards formed a circle around Dren. Their shields overlapped, creating a wall of energy that no weapon could penetrate. Photon rifles, plasma cannons, even nuclear missiles would be useless against such protection. But Taewoo noticed something. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They created a field that absorbed and redirected any beam or blast. However, they were not perfect. There were small gaps where the shields overlapped. These gaps lasted for only a fraction of a second, but they existed. And through one of these gaps, Taewoo could see Dren's head. The Emperor had removed his helmet to address his troops. It was an act of pride, a show of confidence. He wanted his soldiers to see his face. He wanted them to know that he had no fear, that pride would be his death. Taewoo began to calculate. The distance was 847 meters. The gravity on Kala 7 was slightly weaker than Earth. The wind from the ventilation systems created a small drift to the left. The rotation of the moon added another variable. The gap in the shields measured approximately 30 centimeters. It would appear for exactly 1.3 seconds before the shields realigned. Any energy weapon would be absorbed by the shields. Any missile would be detected and destroyed. But a bullet, a simple metal projectile, was not an energy source. The shields were not designed to stop physical objects traveling at high speed. The shot was impossible. Every alien sniper on the battlefield had seen the same opportunity. None of them could take it. Their weapons were too advanced. Their technology was too sophisticated. They had evolved beyond simple bullets long ago, but Taewoo had not. He adjusted his scope. He checked the wind one more time. He controlled his breathing, slowing it down until his body was completely still. His finger rested gently on the trigger. On the balcony, Emperor Dren laughed at the dying coalition soldiers. He did not know that 800 meters away, a human was watching him through a primitive scope. He did not know that his fate was being decided by a weapon that most species considered a museum piece. Taewoo waited. The shields shifted and moved in their pattern. The gap appeared and disappeared. Appeared and disappeared. He counted the rhythm. He memorized the timing. He prepared himself for the moment. Below him, the battle continued. Coalition soldiers were dying. The mission was failing. If something did not change soon, all would be lost. Taewoo exhaled slowly. He cleared his mind of all thoughts. He forgot about the aliens who had laughed at him. He forgot about Earth and the weight of humanity's reputation. He forgot about everything except the target, the wind, the distance, and the gap. His whole life had led to this moment. Every bullet he had ever fired. Every hour he had spent training. Every lesson his grandfather had taught him. It all came down to one shot. The gap in the shields. began to open. Tae-woo stopped breathing. His finger tightened on the trigger. The moment had finally come. Time seemed to stop. The universe became very small. There was only the rifle, the scope, and the distant figure of Emperor Dren standing on his balcony. Everything else faded away into darkness. Tae-woo had experienced this feeling before. His grandfather had called it the silence. It was the moment when the world disappeared and only the shot remained. No fear, no doubt, no thought. Just pure focus, like a laser cutting through stone. Through the scope, he watched the shields move in their endless pattern. The gap opened. 1.3 seconds. Then it closed. He counted the rhythm in his mind. Open, close, open, close, like a heartbeat. He had one chance. If he missed, Dren would retreat inside. The shields would be strengthened. The opportunity would be lost forever. 2,000 hostages would die. The coalition would fall. And humanity would be proven worthless. No pressure. Tae-woo thought to himself. Just another day. He made his final calculations. The bullet would travel 847 meters. At that distance, it would take approximately 1.1 seconds to reach the target. He had to fire before the gap opened, predicting exactly where Dren's head would be when the bullet arrived. It was like shooting a target that did not yet exist. He had to see the future, calculate its position, and send his bullet to meet it there. Any computer would say it was impossible. The variables were too many. The margin for error was too small. A single mistake of 1 centimeter, 1 millisecond, one tiny breath of wind, and the bullet would miss. But Tae-woo was not a computer. He was something older and stranger. He was a human being who had spent 15 years doing nothing but perfecting this one skill. He had missed thousands of shots in training, so that he would never miss the shot that mattered. The gap in the shields began to open. Tae-woo's finger tightened on the trigger. He did not pull. He squeezed. Slowly, gently, with the patience of a man who had all the time in the world. The rifle fired. The sound was sharp and loud, like a crack of thunder. It echoed across the rocky surface of Kala 7. Many of the alien soldiers stopped fighting for a moment, confused by the strange noise. They had never heard a kinetic weapon fire before. To them, it sounded primitive and wrong, like something from ancient history. The bullet left the barrel at 800 meters per second. It was a small piece of metal, no bigger than a finger. It had no guidance system. It had no tracking device. It could not adjust its path or change its direction. Once it was fired, it would fly in a straight line until it hit something or fell to the ground. Such a simple thing. Such a primitive weapon. And yet, in that moment, it was the most dangerous object in the galaxy. The bullet traveled through the thin air of Kala 7. It crossed the distance in 1.1 seconds. During that time, the shields around Emperor Dren shifted exactly as Tae-woo had predicted. The gap opened to its maximum width. 30 centimeters of empty space between two walls of energy. The bullet passed through the gap with 2 centimeters to spare. Emperor Dren was still laughing. He was still enjoying the sight of his enemies dying below. He did not see the bullet coming. He did not hear it. He did not feel anything at all. One moment he was alive. The next moment he was not. The bullet entered his head just above his left eye. It exited through the back of his skull. His body fell backward, crashing onto the balcony floor. The 6 guards spun around in confusion, their weapons raised, searching for an enemy that was nearly a kilometer away. For 3 seconds, the entire battlefield was silent. Every soldier, coalition and Ven alike, stopped what they were doing. They all stared at the balcony where the most powerful man in the Ven Empire lay dead. Then the chaos began. The Ven soldiers had never seen their emperor die. They had believed he was invincible. They had believed that nothing could touch him. Now, in an instant, their belief was shattered. Fear spread through their ranks like fire through dry grass. Some soldiers dropped their weapons and ran. Others fell to their knees in shock. The commanders tried to give orders, but no one listened. The coalition forces saw what was happening and attacked with new strength. General Voss roared and charged forward, crushing any Ven soldier in his path. Commander Brel led his troops in a brutal assault on the enemy lines. Lieutenant Mora fired shot after shot, and this time the enemies had no will to fight back. Within 1 hour, the battle was over. The Ven forces surrendered completely. They had lost their leader, and without him, they had lost everything. The 2,000 hostages were freed from their cells. They walked out into the gray light of Callus 7, confused and grateful and alive. Coalition medics rushed to help them. Transport ships landed to take them home. And through it all, Taewoo remained on his hill, 800 meters away. He lay perfectly still on the rocky ground, his eyes still pressed to his scope. He watched the hostages being rescued. He watched the enemy soldiers being taken prisoner. He watched the coalition celebrate their impossible victory. Then, slowly, he stood up. He lifted his rifle and checked the barrel. It was warm from the single shot he had fired. He ejected the empty shell casing and held it in his hand for a moment. Such a small thing. Such a simple thing. And yet it had changed history. He put the casing in his pocket. He would keep it forever. As he walked down the hill toward the coalition forces, no one paid attention to him at first. The aliens were too busy celebrating, too busy helping the hostages, too busy trying to understand what had happened. Then Commander Brel saw him approaching. The Tyranny warrior stopped what he was doing. His 6 eyes locked onto Taewoo. He remembered the human's words from the day before. This tube has never missed. Brel did not laugh this time. He did not make jokes or mocking comments. He simply stood there and watched as the quiet human walked past him, carrying his old rifle over his shoulder. General Voss saw it too. So did Lieutenant Mora. So did every soldier on the battlefield. They had all seen the replay of the shot on their displays. They had all watched a single bullet travel 847 meters through a tiny gap in shields that should have been impenetrable. They had all witnessed the impossible become possible. No one said anything to Taewoo. No one cheered for him or thanked him. The silence was heavier than any words could have been. It was the silence of beings who had just discovered that everything they believed was wrong. Taewoo walked to the transport ship and sat down in the same seat he had occupied on the way down. He closed his eyes and rested his head against the wall. His job was done. 1 shot. 1 kill. Just like his grandfather had taught him. Outside, the sun set over Callus 7. The battle was over. The war was ending. And somewhere in the stars, the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The debriefing room was filled with the most important military leaders in the Galactic Coalition. Generals, admirals, and commanders from 30 different species sat in silence. Their eyes were fixed on the large screen at the front of the room. On that screen, a single video played over and over again. It showed Taewoo lying on the rocky hill. It showed him adjusting his scope. It showed him pulling the trigger. And then it showed the bullet traveling 847 meters through a gap that measured only 30 centimeters, striking Emperor Dren exactly where Taewoo had aimed. General Voss had watched the video 17 times. Each time, he noticed something new. The perfect stillness of the human's body. The slow, controlled breathing. The tiny adjustment of the rifle just before the shot. Every movement was precise, practiced, and purposeful. Impossible, Voss said. His voice was barely a whisper. The calculations alone would take a supercomputer 10 minutes. He made them in his head, in less than 30 seconds. The gap in the shields was open for only 1.3 seconds, said a coalition scientist who had been brought in to analyze the shot. The bullet traveled for 1.1 seconds. That means he fired before the gap opened, predicting exactly when and where it would appear. Lieutenant Mora stood up from her chair. Her silver skin had turned pale. I saw that gap too, she admitted. I had the same shot, but my photon rifle could not take it. The shields would have absorbed my beam. All our weapons are energy-based, said another officer. We evolved past kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. We thought they were primitive, useless. We were wrong. The room fell silent again. The video played once more. The rifle fired. The bullet flew. The Emperor died. It was so simple, so elegant, so terrifyingly effective. Commander Brell finally spoke. He had not said anything since returning from Cala 7. His 6 eyes had a distant look, as if he was still trying to understand what he had witnessed. Where is the human now? He asked. In his quarters, someone answered. He has been there since we returned. He has not spoken to anyone. Brell stood up and walked toward the door. I need to talk to him. He found Tae-woo in the same small room where they had first met. The human was sitting on his bed, cleaning his rifle piece by piece. He did not look up when Brell entered. How did you do it? Brell asked. There was no mockery in his voice now, only genuine curiosity and something that might have been respect. Daewoo continued to clean his rifle. I pulled the trigger. That is not what I mean. Brell stepped closer. How did you know you could make that shot? How did you calculate the variables? How did you stay so calm when everything was falling apart? Taewoo finally looked up. His eyes were the same as they had always been. Steady, quiet, certain. I did not know, he said. I simply trusted 10,000 hours of practice, one breath, and one trigger pull. He paused and set down the rifle part he was holding. On Earth, we have a saying. One shot, one kill. We've had a very long time to perfect it. Bro was silent for a moment. Then he did something that surprised even himself. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect among his people. I laughed at you, he said. I called your weapon a toy. I was a fool. Tae-woo nodded slowly. You were not a fool. You simply did not understand. Now you do. That evening, the Coalition Council held an emergency meeting. The representatives from all 70 member worlds gathered to discuss what had happened on Cala 7. The debates lasted for hours, but the conclusion was clear. The vote was unanimous. Earth's status was upgraded from observer species to full military partner. For the first time in 3 years, humanity was considered an equal member of the galactic community. But that was not all. In the days that followed, requests began to pour in from across the galaxy. Every military wanted human marksmen embedded in their forces. Every species wanted to learn the secrets of kinetic weapons. Every world suddenly realized that the primitive humans had something valuable to offer. Hannah found Tae-woo in the station's garden, a small room filled with plants from different planets. He was sitting alone on a bench, staring at a flower that looked like nothing on Earth. They are calling you a hero, Hannah said as she sat down beside him. Everyone is talking about the shot. You are famous. Tae-woo shook his head. I am not a hero. I am just a soldier who did his job. But you changed everything, Hannah insisted. Because of you, Earth is respected now. Because of you, we have a place in the galaxy. Tae-woo thought about this for a long moment. He remembered his grandfather's words about patience and waiting for the right moment. He remembered his father teaching him to shoot in the mountains of Gangwon Province. He remembered all the years he had spent alone, practicing the same movements over and over again until they became part of his soul. I did not change anything, he said finally. I simply showed them what was already true. Humans are not weak. We are not primitive. We have survived on a dangerous planet for hundreds of thousands of years. We have learned to adapt, to overcome, to find solutions where others see only problems. He looked at Hana with his steady eyes. The shot was not special because it was difficult. It was special because no one else thought it was possible. They had forgotten that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. They had forgotten that technology is not everything. Hana smiled. What will you do now? Stay here and train the other species? Tae-woo stood up from the bench. No, I will return to Earth. I will go back to my village in the mountains. I will continue to practice and teach and wait. Wait for what? Tae-woo looked out the window at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, new enemies were rising. New battles were being planned. New impossible shots were waiting to be taken. The moment always comes, he said. Maybe not when you expect it. Maybe not how you imagine it. But it comes. And when it does, I must be ready. 3 years later, the Galactic Marksmanship Academy was founded on Earth. It was the first galactic institution hosted by humanity. Students from every species in the coalition came to learn from human teachers. They studied breathing techniques and patience. They learned about wind and gravity and distance. They practiced for thousands of hours until their bodies knew what to do without thinking. The motto of the academy was carved in stone at the entrance. It said, "Where others see impossible, humans see practice." And in the mountains of Gangwon Province, an old man sat on a hill overlooking his village. He held a rifle that had once killed an emperor. His eyes scanned the horizon, watching, waiting, always ready. Staff Sergeant Kang Tae-woo had shown the galaxy what humanity could do. But he knew that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast and full of challenges. And wherever there was an impossible shot waiting to be taken, a human would be there to take it. One breath. One bullet. One shot at a time.